So here we have Jacob saying he tried to invest at $650, but the minimum is $750. Was this done to get the extra $100? Frustrated. And David S. says, is the extra 15% really important? 15% of nothing is still nothing. Nick says, please ignore David S. as he's an office troll making this kind of nasty behavior. And Jacob says, no problem, Nick. I'm going to respectfully decline this investment offer after tuning into the low energy interview with the CEO last night. It's clear that this is not going to succeed. The lack of interest has also been shown here with the low turnout of investors. Day-to-day numbers here are incredibly low. I follow an investment campaign here on StartEngine last year for a dog food bowl with a lever on it, or lever, and which it did better in the same amount of time. And John C. says, did your mom enjoy the bowl, or did you go back to feeding her peanut butter? Fuck, that's totally Tommy. That's 100% him. And what an idiot. What an idiot. Even if it's not Tommy, whoever it is, you're making this situation worse for them. And then David S. below, this is the same YouTube clip, saying, is this person in the clip really the founder of the Intellivision Amico and curator of so-called family-friendly content? Cesar says, oof. And yeah, that's just always funny. It always comes to bite him in the ass in the long run. So this one's pretty interesting. Clarice, as someone with decades of experience with video games, please do not be fooled into investing in this. This company has a vision that is unsustainable, and its detractors have been proven right at every turn. Over the past few years, the former CEO has run the console's goodwill into the ground, and the gaming press rightfully believes that this console has no market. At this point, it's almost as expensive as the major consoles. And this was before, or else not mentioning when they might be increasing their price to $350. But without their games, no kid wants this over a Switch. Nothing on it will match the wholesome fun of a Mario or Zelda. This is a console whose only audience is the very few people who are nostalgic for Amico. Well, they wrote Amiivo. Nobody who understands the gaming industry would ever invest in this. Call me a hater. I'm not. But before you spend your hard-earned money, please at least do your research and read what the real gaming press and influencers have to say. They have burned all their goodwill in the community and were banned from the biggest retro forum for attacks and lies by the previous CEO, who was recently demoted. Please, this is a black hole. If Amazon couldn't compete with their cloud-based console, then this is at best a joke. Nope, a poor business decision propping up the pie-in-the-sky dream of Tommy Tallarico. So that sounds like fighting words. So, of course, John C. goes on a huge rant here. Just, Jesus Christ. Thomas T. once again responds, we kindly and respectfully disagree with most of the above statements. For those reading, please make sure to check out the hundreds of people and families across the U.S. who have played the Amico. Here are just a few examples. And, of course, he links the 4 videos that they had made, which the people have debunked already with that it was full of actors and shills and people, friends of the company. And he doesn't bring up the German game site that just crapped on it. So he brings up all the different things. But meanwhile, so Thomas writes that John C. goes on a rampage here. And it's got to be Tommy. So Tommy, the previous one was Nice Tommy. John C. is not Nice Tommy. He's crapping on people and defending it and saying how good it was. You can freeze it if you want to read all of it, but he goes on to 2 parts, like just a massive story. Like, who would go to their way and write 20 paragraphs just because Clarice said that don't invest in this? And we have Jacob here saying, I don't believe that's Thomas T. He doesn't have the intelligent indicator. Proceed with caution and response. It is unlikely to be Mr. Shorterico. Nick says, with regards to Jacob's comment, the system does only support one Intellivision account, so you may see other posting from the companies under their own name. And for Jacob making fun of Tommy's height, it is truly astonishing to see this type of behavior on an investment site. It erodes the credibility of other questions posted and demonstrates the existence of a cruel and ruthless group of people that only wish to inflict harm. So he is saying that that it is Tommy. So I guess this is confirmation that was Tommy. I'm positive John C. is also Tommy, because who else would write all that shit? So David S. says, in the interest of fairness, the CEO and CTO did an interview a few hours ago, which was probably the most sincere interview we've seen in the history of Intellivision. And that's the link to the Retro Bro video. I don't know if that's the most sincere. I think Tony's interview with Nick last year was pretty good. Mike C says, with regards to over 25 million in pre-orders, purchase orders, and allocation requests, what is the itemized amount for each category? Do the purchase orders have an expiry date? Very good question. Nick responds, Mike, we can't break this down specifically as it would create some tension in the distributor side market. We have to prioritize where the product is going, and not everyone is going to get all that they wanted out of the gate. So he talks about how they have 3 different, US, Canada, Europe, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't go into details. So Joseph says, Nick, could you please at least state what percentage is from actual committed individual custom pre-orders? From a description, the remainder is fairly ephemeral. I take it that the new 25% upfront distributor is only for future orders not included. So once again, this was a legit question. Like, what's the breakdown? The breakdown is they have very little very little pre-orders, and most purchase orders are not guaranteed purchase orders. Like, it's not money down. So of course he's not going to give the proper answer, because he doesn't want to say, well, we have people with intentions to make a purchase order. They're not sold yet. So Joseph says, I have a question about your SAM, which appears to be based on the percentage of smartphone gamers in your chart. Since these are predominantly the casual gamers you're targeting, the issue is they casually game on their phone specifically because they already own the platform. It is in their pockets and it is convenient. Additionally, the vast majority of revenue for casual gamers is through microtransactions, something that Amico bans, since most casual gamers' games are free upfront. My question is, what specific market research have you performed to determine what portion of casual gamers don't own an existing console but want to buy a console to play games that are not free upfront? And this is one of the ones that comments that people open their eyes. So Nick says, as we went through the process of estimating the addressable market, we looked at several different segments that we feel that we can give our broader strategy. Also, please note that we haven't necessarily articulated our entire strategy, as it's not necessarily appropriate to publish every aspect of our company in the public domain. As mentioned before, we have a big focus on game concepts that would fall into existing board game conversions. So he's bringing up the board game things. This is brand new. They haven't pushed this much at all. So I'm guessing this is their new pivot. And new original game concepts that integrate physical products with their gaming platform, including leveraging native smartphone support as well as the integrated RFID technology. Based on our strategy, in this segment, we calculated an addressable market of $2 billion. It hasn't been widely discussed, but it is not a focus of launch, but we plan to develop games for mobile. They've never talked about this, both as a revenue stream and to provide broader exposure for our Amico platform. These games will not have the same restrictions as we impose on the platform. Given the types of games we plan to develop, both internally and in partnership with third parties, we calculated an addressable market of $19 billion. So now they're talking about going to the mobile game market. They've never, ever mentioned this. They had an app, and it had a few downloads. Not like that app had a ton of millions of downloads. So they're doing a full pivot now again. We looked at the console market in the context of estimating an addressable market. We included the household considering an Xbox or PlayStation would not necessarily cross-shop against the Amico, but rather considering Amico as an addition to the higher-end gaming console that is more focused on immersive, physical, isolating experiences. Think the metaverse. They like using these cliche terms here or whatever. I don't know what the word is, but they like using those the jargon or the lingo there, the metaverse. Yeah, same people who don't know the difference between NFT and NFC. Anyways, it says it is more likely that there could be cross-shopping between the Amico and the Nintendo products, but again, the Intellivision intense focus on group play experience will ultimately be a meaningful difference between the experience with these products, provided thus may be viewed complementary within the household. With that, we estimate an addressable market of approximately $25 billion. So they're just pulling numbers out of they're just pulling shit out of the air. We then added approximately $8 billion to our addressable market estimate to account for the silent market that has exited the market after the Wii. So he's just making up numbers. Like, well, the guy asked how you came up with the numbers. He's like, well, we approximate that it's $8 billion. Well, how do you come up with $8 billion? Like, how do you know that many people left the market from the Wii? And so finally, he says they include $2 billion for supplementary revenue streams such as merchandising, toys, IP licensing, and part of our esports strategy. In total, this comes to $56 billion. So basically, they said, well, there's we might do something on the cell phone, so we'll add 20 billion here. Well, we might have one tournament, so we'll consider that esports. So that we'll add 2 billion. Like, they're just pulling numbers out of. He didn't answer how they came up with the numbers. Joseph B says, "Thank you, Nick, for that breakdown. I appreciate it. I find it a little odd that as 40% of your SAM is from new revenue streams that you really didn't discuss in your offering at all, releasing games on mobile platforms, microtransactions, RFID board games, toys, recreational esports strategy." This is dead on. Like, they've never ever brought this up before, and it's not even in the offering, like he said. I find it strange that all these new revenue streams are being mentioned for the first time in the comments section. Not quite what to make of this, to be honest. I thought the investment was in a console, but 40% of your revenue does not involve the console at all. Given the incredible expense of manufacturing and supporting the console, with, it seems, little upside, has there been thought to just shelving that aspect and going software-only model, which sounds like it'd be far more profitable? And that's what a lot of people suggest at the beginning, just do a software company and then maybe eventually move into hardware. The only bit of SAM that I can sink my teeth into regarding the console is the 25 billion for existing console users. I'm still failing to see the differentiate between the Nintendo market, given you say your USPs are family friendly, group play. My children have a Switch, and if I go to Nintendo eStore, I can filter by E10 Plus, a family friendly rating, and multiplayer only, plus less than $20, and it still lists 1,384 games. Just the party game subsection has over 400. And I brought this up before. I can't remember the numbers in the video, but the eShop has 4,000 games, and they're cheap. Given your RRP is going to be about the same as the Switch, and the marketing budget to compete with would be many times the total of the fundraise, I just can't see the sense in it. However, your software-only avenue makes a lot more sense, as intelligent branding could give that range a differentiator. And having a branded range of games available on all platforms just for old wholesome family fun could work. If that is a realistic option you're considering, I'd certainly be interested in hearing more. And, well, that just makes sense. As Nick had said 6 days ago, "Joseph, first let me explain some of the planned revenue sources that will provide a bit more clarity on how to interpret the validation of addressable market. We also have our core Amico console and associated games as well as related accessories. This is targeted at a casual family market, especially those wanting to provide a safe and responsible gaming experience for the family. We also have a segment of games and third-party IP that will be offered on the Amico platform, but will also be published on third-party platforms." So this is the first time we've also heard that they're going to publish it on different platforms. So this is brand new too. In addition, we'll be offering specific versions of certain games on mobile that will support common revenue models such as in-game microtransactions. Once again, first time we've ever heard them ever say that their sales pitches were talking about predatory gaming. They've had multiple videos about this, and now they've completely pivoted, like a 180 on that. The part of the broader revenue strategy that is important to clarify is that the core Amico console platform will not deviate from the family gaming ethos that we have established. So now we're learning about Hall. Before it was all about the console. You can only play on the console, nowhere else. No predatory mobile microtransactions or anything. Now they've completely did a 180 on that. It just feels like that what they're doing is just throwing a ton of shit on the wall and hoping something sticks. And anyone with any business sense knows you try to focus on doing something really good and build off of that instead of doing 100 different things shitty and hope that to build a business off of a lot of shitty ideas. Just seems terrible. So he says, with that said, given our target demographic, we simply can't look at the existing gaming market when considering when our addressable market might look. Interviews with families that were Nintendo Wii owners shows that a significant portion of the market exited the console market. They did not purchase another console after the Wii. The most common reason was that there was not a comparable product that provided the same level of accessibility and group play experience. Based on these findings, we established that the assumption that a significant portion of our addressable market is not necessarily represented in the game market revenue numbers. Industry revenue numbers. And once again, where did they find this number? How do you even get that number? Like, how do you find out all the people who bought a Wii and then didn't buy a Wii again? Like, how do you find that? You'd have to interview everybody in the world. And one of the issues, like, they never bring up that the Wii did sell a lot of consoles. and started off hot, but the software attach rate, especially for those casual people who only bought it for Wii Sports, was terrible. So they did sell a console. Nintendo made profit off the console, so they did make a lot of money. But Grandma and Grandpa would buy Wii Sports and maybe one or two other games and nothing else. Meanwhile, a gaming family would buy a Xbox 360 and buy 30 games or 40 games over the console's life, and would bring in a ton more money in the end. So Nick also says it is also important to mention that we don't see the purchase of an Amico as an exclusionary decision to other gaming products. Amico will have a heavy focus on families with younger children, so we see Amico as a ramp on gaming for those families. Millennials are now the largest generation, surpassing the baby boomers. They statistically have been starting families later in life, which has created one of the largest populations of families with at least one child 7 or younger than any other time in the history of the world. As the children in the family mature, we can imagine that they might move to something like the Switch and ultimately something hardcore like the Xbox or PlayStation. As they do, we see the gaming dynamic for those children shift to more physical isolation in online play. This gets back to that cheesy Neil Patel investors video, or I guess even the family video here where they showed the kid in a dark room by himself. I don't believe that. And I know I don't represent every single parent, but my little one, when she plays Animal Crossing, she sits next to me and wants to show me, like, hey, look at what I did. And a lot of times she asks, hey, come play a Lego game with me, like when we play Lego Incredibles. And even my friends who have boys who are older and teens and stuff, they want to play against their dad at like Call of Duty, Halos and stuff. It's not like they don't talk with their family, they just hide by themselves. That's such a stereotype. And also with they're targeting the baby market. It sounds like here, or the toddler market. I have had 2 toddlers. Those kids learn really fast, and they move on from toy to toy or electronics or whatever at a really fast rate. So that market is so small and that window is so tiny, it makes no sense. Like, why would you focus on that? Most people buy Leapfrog products, and then they'll buy it and last like 6 months to a year. And then they buy the next stage of Leapfrog, and once they hit 6 or 7, then they're ready for the Switch or even an Xbox or PlayStation. This market doesn't exist for a reason. If it existed, Nintendo would have put a lot more effort and money into getting 5 or 6 year olds into games. There's obviously a reason why they don't. So Joseph responds, "Thank you, Nick. I love looking forward to seeing those calculations, because they never ever answer the calculations. They just said, hey, this is what we think. It's just opinions, not facts." I'm not sure I would agree that there's no Wii replacement, especially with the recent announcement of Switch Sports, the successor to Wii Sports, being released in April, and their focus on family group entertainment of late. Nintendo seems to have recaptured that group market play once again. And with the Switch now having sold more units than the Wii, I'd be interested to know how your sample size for those interviews and what percentage were aware of the Switch as an alternative, or perhaps the environment has changed since they were conducted. I think you mentioned the board game market as an interesting one. I can see some differentiators in that space. Do you also do market research on board game players and their willingness to go digital, as it were? I think having board games that only can be played digitally, i.e. would not work with a physical game, would be a good idea. Can you point to me some footage of some such games in development and when they may be ready for release? I see the gameplay trailer, a simple dice game and a card game, but those are realistically best served as an inexpensive deck of cards or dice for tactile and screen-free family play. And that's what I said earlier in this. They haven't showed any of this. And I didn't even bring up the fact that there's tons of digital gaming services now, like board game services. Like, I played using Tabletopia with friends, and it's beautiful because you can just buy one copy of the game and you can play, I guess you could play on the TV, you play on the browser, you can play on laptops, wherever, and it works great. And Arcade 1-Ups now has I think it's called the Infinity Table. It's just like a coffee table with a screen on it, and that's super cool. Like, if you want to do digital, I think that'd be a lot more fun. And it has all the big games, like all the licensed games. So he says, I apologize for all the questions, but frankly, I'm still very dubious this opportunity will generate any return. However, I do want to give a chance to convince me with the long shot upside, as I'm a lifelong gamer since the Atari 2600. So Joseph is asking honest questions, but they're hard-hitting questions, and Nick just won't give the direct answers because he probably doesn't have the answers. I think a lot of the numbers they just make up, they just pull out of nowhere. So Nick continues saying, given our strategy with their board game conversions and new board game concept development, we also looked at the 13 billion board game market. So they're just like, if anyone has ever watched Shark Tank, Mark Cuban just absolutely decimates anyone who talks like this. It just brings up, oh, we can hit this market, that market. That's not how it works. If it's that easy, like you can hit all these markets and just get a small percentage of it, everyone would do it and everyone would be billionaires. So they don't show some proof of this. So he just reiterates the common thread that this is group play, bringing people together is what Intellivision's mission above else. So David asks, or says, at the end of the day, I think it's all about when Amico can be released. A firm date, an achievable plan of how you are going to get there would be something that might entice me to invest. I think people really want to know exactly where manufacturing is. Do you have a manufacturer? How much money will it take to get 10,000 units produced? How quickly can they be produced once the money is paid? Once Amico is out there, even the games and OS are not as polished as one would hope. It means revenue is trickling in, and even if more funds are required to move things to the next level, there would be at least much greater level of confidence than what we currently have. And this should have been addressed last summer when they said the parts shortage. They should have been a bit more clear, saying, "Oh, we need to source these specific parts," or just what they need to do to solve that issue if they have to redesign the board. Maybe if they were actually transparent, saying, "Well, we can't get these parts because they're discontinued. We have to redesign the board, get recertified. Then with these new parts and new redesigned boards, then we can proceed." But they haven't said anything, just missing parts. And that's why we don't believe that it's just missing parts. We think it's more so incomplete hardware, software. It's just they're just massively behind. Joseph B says, besides the market research below, I'd like to request a breakdown of how your SAM was calculated. Well, this is just like the last question. So we have Kelly P here saying, you may want to correct these two pieces of false information in your marketing above. So they're saying there's misinformation. Under patents, you make it seem like this has been granted, but your SEC disclosure reveals that it's only pending. Please make this clear unless it has been fully granted since the disclosure. So yeah, just being honest. Her second point, or his second point, is you state most of today's gaming systems cost upwards of $500, but none of them do. A quick check reveals the Switch costs $300, the Series S is $300, PlayStation 5 is $400, Xbox Series X is $500, and PS5, the non-digital, is $500. These last two include full Blu-ray players in them. It'd be highly misleading to add in costs of extra peripherals or controllers, as they're not a system cost, they are optional. And these systems support very inexpensive third-party controllers anyway. Hey, this person has seen my videos where I did comparisons. Any false statements casting doubt on everything so it would be in your best interest to be accurate and amend your text accordingly. Nick says, Kelly, you're obviously quite familiar with the gaming industry, which would put you in the demographic of a gamer, and given what I've heard, more likely a hardcore gamer. Many young parents dread the idea of introducing video games into their households because they know the downsides: propensity of violence and sex, toxicity, and predators in communities, highly sophisticated technology to optimize the timing and positioning of in-game purchases, gambling-based dopamine triggers like loot boxes. The industry has become more like Vegas, where you see, what the fuck is this guy saying? Once again, I'm not speaking for all parents. I am a parent. I talk to lots of other parents. I have not seen any of my friends, coworkers, people in my social circles ever say, dread the idea of introducing a video game system into the household. Almost all of them have bought Switches because it's easy, because both the parents grew up with video games, so they're fully aware of how systems work, and they're fully aware of it, and they know that there isn't that issue, especially with the Switch. And I also find it funny, he talks about predatory, in-game purchases, but in the previous question he talks about how they're going to pivot to doing mobile games with in-game purchases. So what a hypocrite. Most non-gamer families have never heard of Rocket League or Rec Room, and the prospect of searching through thousands of games to find something good is typically quite intimidating. Non-gamer families rarely ever go out and buy an Xbox or PlayStation to play family games. I would expect in your case, given the dialogue, you're already a gamer, play video games outside of just with your kids, and have quite a bit of knowledge. What is your game? Apex Legends, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Many parents don't set up parental controls because of the complexity. Nintendo's Jesus Christ. It's hilarious. That's complex, but setting up your Wi-Fi for your Amico and synchronizing the controllers and downloading an app on your phone to play Amico games, that's not complex. That's easy. I shake my head. So he says Nintendo's recommended approach is to download a smartphone app, set up a new user account, generate a code, go back to the Switch, and go to parental consoles, go through a process to link your app to your Switch using the code that was generated in the app. Our view is, particularly for those non-gamers with younger kids, the promise of a platform that only offers family-friendly games, that does not offer in-game purchases, that take advantage of blah, blah, blah. He's using the same selling points. And I call bullshit on that too, because almost every parent now has smartphones, and everyone has set up a Google or Android or iOS account. I know I'm not, once again, speaking for everyone, but a lot of people purchase Leapfrog products. And those Leapfrog products require online registrations. I know I have an Android phone. My children have Android tablets. I set up parental controls. It's pretty darn easy to link, a parent account with the child account. So they make it seem like it's impossible. People are scared. And even if you don't have all that stuff, this Nintendo Switch, I don't have parental control. I have basic parental control set up so you can't use your credit card, but it's very easy. It's like 2 menus. Another challenge we see for non-gamers is modern-day controllers. With over a dozen button sticks and particularly analog sticks, controllers are intimidating and difficult to become proficient. So this is their bullshit thing of, it's just ridiculous. Not to mention the screen on our controllers allow game developers to make navigation a lot simpler than press Y or RT button. Yet, on the Finnegan Fox video, it shows press A button on the screen, like the A to proceed, B to go back, or whatever it was. They're simulating that exact same thing on the screen, which makes it even more confusing because there's no need to do that. Oh, jeez. Kelly answers back. See what Kelly answers back with. Kelly says, "This is a very out-of-touch take, Nick. It took me only a couple of minutes to set up parental controls, and I don't need to worry about a single thing you mentioned, and I'm very far from being a tech expert. The stores have curated sections for popular or recommended games such as monthly picks, editor's choice, play together for all ages, body and mind. Most of the games my kids play only require 1 or 2 buttons. Kids aren't dumb. They pick these things up in a minute or two if you spend a few moments with them and give them a chance. Then they just have fun. By the way, you should try Rocket League. It's basically a team sports game where you drive little buggies and shove balls around. It's a blast, and with the fam. I'll take a look at your parental control setup to see what it's like, but what kind of games I can't get on other platforms that we may want to play." And that's just dead on. Like, these guys are so out of touch, and they say they do focus group testing. I question this because I've known tons of families with little kids who picked up Mario Kart, and Mario Kart's a good example because they have you can set up the controllers so the kids, it helps control for them and they don't fall behind. And I've seen little kids as small as like 4 or 5 play games and still have fun. They may suck at Mario Kart and finish near the bottom, but they have tons of fun. For myself, my child picked up an Xbox controller within 5 minutes, learned how to move and do everything. It's not, they're making a problem, make it seem like there's a problem that exists, but that doesn't exist. Nick had also said, "Hello, Kelly. Yes, it is correct. We have not received our final approval for our patent submission. I'll talk to StartEngine about changes that make that clear. Sorry for the confusion, and thank you for pointing it out. We're trying to compare apples to apples, so when our core bundle includes 2 controllers and 6 games, it's not necessarily an apples-to-apples comparison with a system with 1 controller and no games. Since we don't have a similar scaled-down bundle, we tend to draw a fair comparison. With the cost of Xbox and PlayStation at $500, extra controller at $55.70, he's just putting up the numbers there. What he doesn't say is you can buy a Switch, which comes bundled with the game, or you can get free-to-play games, and the Switch comes with 2 controllers. I don't care what Atari Creep or whoever says that they don't like the controller because it's small. It's still 2 controllers, so that's an apples-to-apples comparison. And of course, he picks the most expensive bundles and then adds the $50, $70 for the controllers and the games. He says, 1 game at $60 here for the Xbox. Well, I can buy like Overcooked for $3 sometimes. So He's just fucking with numbers there. Kelly had responded to that saying, "Thanks for the clarification on the patent pending. I hope the text can be corrected soon. I still think there's a poor price comparison to add a controller. Shouldn't they add the price of a 4K Blu-ray to the Amico?" By the way, perfectly good third-party controllers are only $20 for the other consoles. Usually a little bit more, but close enough. There's also 100 free-to-play games on PS5. And that's when she brings up Rocket League and Rec Room. And then Mark says, "Rocket League is a type of free-play game that Amico's trying to avoid. I'm a teacher and know of high school students putting hundreds of dollars into one game." Well, good for them. Like, at high school, I put hundreds of dollars into booze, so who cares? Joseph says, "Mark, parental controls on my PS5 completely blocks in-app purchases. Please inform those parents of how to do this if they're not aware." Kelly says, "Right, please. It's just easy to just have them to do it. By the way, Nick, I've been unable to find any info on how your parental controls are set up to block store purchases," which is a funny thing because they did do a demonstration of the UI, and it showed just a check mark, just a checkbox. It was easier to buy games on the Amico store from what they showed compared to like the Nintendo Switch, which requires me to put in a password. And if you have any parental controls, they didn't show it yet. So John C is here saying, "Trolls for Intellivision, there are various tactics. More to follow tomorrow. David S. has posted 18 times. His last 2 posts were uncharacteristic as they never seem completely unbiased. I will not try to admit I'm suspicious about this." And he's pointing out he's made 7 or taunting or mocking comments to people making an investment in either Intellivision offerings. So he's complaining a lot. It does say that John C has 26 investments, so maybe it isn't Tommy, but I still doubt it. So I like the part where he says, "David asks, sweetheart, boobala, you wrote that." And then, like, why is someone doing this? And then Cesar says, "Can you please explain this investor troll tactics as well? Because he's an investor who put 10 grand into Intellivision and used to be one of the biggest supporters. Is he also a troll hater? I think this video should be a clear warning for anybody thinking about wasting their money with this failure. This is an actual investor who put money into this, big money into this." So he's talking about Smash GT when he exposed everything. And Joseph had said, "Can you please keep all this irrelevant nonsense off the page? There are investors like me who would like to answer the serious questions here. Just report the comments as inappropriate and move on." And John C complains like crazy. You can read it if you want, but... So here we have John C complaining about Cesar and everything. This person has put a lot of time and effort into trying to defend the honor of the Amico. I don't even think that people like Retro Bro or Geeks or any of those guys would even put this much effort into this. It has to be Tommy. Cesar responded to him, "Sure, champ, whatever you say, have fun scamming people." Kevin F says, "I'm curious about Amico. I was interested in Republic, but equity interests me since I believe acquisition could be profitable. Questions for the team. 1. For a family product, there's a lack of diversity, gender specifically, on the leadership team. How is this bias balanced in product design, messaging, and marketing?" And usually, while I don't agree with this I think in this case it's actually a good point, because not that they need a mom on the team or whatnot, but all the decisions and everything seems like from a 50-year-old guy with no kids. Like, it doesn't seem like the messaging or just the design has with parents in mind at all. Game experience on the team is clear. What is the consumer's electronic design, manufacturing, retail experience? Which is a great point, which a lot of people brought up in the past. Just because you made music for a game doesn't mean you know how to create hardware and release it. What is COGS and the cost reduction rate? With Switch and Xbox S under 300, will you be able to stay below Nintendo and Microsoft price? What is the retail price of a controller? What is the revenue share per unit on crowdfunding plus loans? How many consoles will you need to deliver before you generate profit? These are actually good questions. With the cash position, can Intellivision develop a wide enough collection of games to attract customers to the system with the first-party approach? How many games will be released in 22 and 23? Inexpensive multiplayer, family, classic, and simple games exist on all of today's systems. And everyone keeps harping and bringing this up, but they like to deny that this exists. When the majors have hundreds of these games for less than $20, what will convince the family to buy the Amico? When will licenses from MLB, Crayola, Sesame Street, Hot Wheels, and Dungeons & Dragons be available? The filing outlines $1 million to finish the online store. Is the DRM delivery and payment system in place today? Blockchain and NFT is complex and unproven. Major game companies have talked about NFT for scarce in-game objects, but why does the family or investors care about NFT? Is there concern about negativity emerging with the NFT in the media? Is there a plan for physical games at retail? How much of the packaged download code product has been sold? Why do you sell these so far ahead of system availability? We think we know the answer to that, just to get a quick buck. Capital markets are flooded and rates are low. Why has the company chosen crowdfunding and director loans rather than traditional funding? With the $5 million StartEngine raise, will any of the cash service outstanding debt or loans? How many systems can be delivered with this raise? How many retail purchase orders are committed and when will they be fulfilled? When will we see the first Amico and sale at a store? They've never ever gone to details about the retail purchase orders, and I've said this many times before. I highly doubt that they have these purchase orders because stores do not want to sell electronics, especially something like this, which is expensive. It has to be secured because it's at a high price point. It has low margins. There's no reason for them to want this product in their store, so they're not gonna put out a ton of money on a purchase order, especially on a system that has shown that there's no interest in it. 11. How does manufacturing in the US help the company? Who is your US manufacturing partner, and when will this manufacturing transition to Asia? Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. So for my opinion, that was probably the best question up to date, like legit questions. It wasn't troll questions. A lot of like stuff that investors would like to know. So let's see if Nick answers all 11 questions. They're very easy black and white questions. They aren't hard to answer. Let's see how honest he'll be. Hey Kevin, or hello Kevin. As a father of 2 daughters, I am acutely aware of the benefits of diverse perspective, particularly when it comes to gender. Honestly, it has been difficult to recruit women into the company as the video game industry is dominated by men. Still doesn't mean that your leadership has to be male. Like, maybe it's hard to get, and it's true, I'm in IT, heavily male presence in the programming and developing and all that and whatnot, but it wouldn't be too hard to find marketing, management, females in those roles. Consultants, I don't know. The industry comes with a certain level of toxicity that's not appealing. Oh, geez, why is he bringing this up? And that toxicity generated mostly by men and boys, it is not particularly inviting to a woman. Hey, I wonder if your CEO talking about getting a blowjob from a puppet would kind of dissuade women from applying. Interesting. You can see this level of toxicity in the post here. The industry in general needs to do a lot more. He's not answering the questions. We would love to recruit more women to the company at all levels. If you know any good candidates, send them our way. Okay, there's 11 questions to answer here. Says our product design engineering team was recruited out of a consulting firm that focused on a broad array of consumer electronics products with extensive experience in bringing products to retail stores. Or he's talking about how they came out of military and space applications, blah blah blah. Our head of channel sales had broad experience in retail within the video game industry, specifically with time at Nintendo. Our head of marketing has led large blah blah blah. So he's going to break down the 23 individual questions that he had posted. I thought it was 12. I don't think he's ever answered those questions. You think that this was like probably one of the few genuine questions that they would take time, but they didn't.